What if the most unexpected courtroom escape happened right under everyone's nose? What if a convicted criminal made a break for it and no one saw it coming? What if he jumped from a dangerous height? Or worse, what if he managed to grab a gun and opened fire in the courthouse? Get ready for the wildest courtroom escapes of all time. First, meet Gerald Hyde, who was just convicted of possession. You won't believe what he did next. It'll leave you speechless. Stay with us to find out what happened to the craziest criminals who pulled the wildest courtroom escapes. Gerald Hyde II. Meet Gerald Hyde, a man who turned a routine court appearance into a dramatic escape scene straight out of a movie. Convicted of methamphetamine possession, Hyde was being processed at the Benton County Justice Center in Washington when he saw an opportunity and seized it. It was 2015, and Hyde, surrounded by other convicts, shuffled to the back of the line as if blending into the crowd. But this was no ordinary shuffle. With a few calculated steps, Hyde slipped into an empty courtroom, a bold move that set the stage for his daring escape. Once inside, Hyde shed his inmate shirt, cleverly using it to mask his handcuffs. He sprinted through the courtroom barefoot, abandoning his telltale orange prison shoes. Each move was calculated to make him less identifiable. Then, in a jaw-dropping moment, Hyde strolled right out of the courthouse's front door as if he belonged. Freedom was within his grasp, or so he thought. Hyde's breakout was as brief as it was brazen. 2 hours later, his run came to an abrupt end when officers recaptured him. His taste of freedom earned him more than a few raised eyebrows and a new charge: second-degree escape. For his short-lived adventure, the 24-year-old was slapped with an additional sentence of 2 years and 2 months in prison. While Gerald Hyde's escape attempt was bold, cunning, and almost cinematic, it was far from flawless. His stunt might have been quick, but justice proved quicker. Nicholas Garrison. In Greenfield, Ohio, 34-year-old Nicholas Garrison made a bold and reckless escape attempt that turned a routine courthouse transfer into a life-altering drama, leaving one deputy seriously injured. Sentenced for drug possession, Garrison seized a fleeting opportunity during a courthouse transfer to make a break for freedom. As deputies prepared to escort him to jail, Garrison yanked free and bolted toward the stairs. The dramatic moment, captured on courthouse surveillance footage, shows him sprinting down the steps with officers in hot pursuit. In a desperate bid to stop the escape, one deputy hurled himself over the stair railing in an attempt to tackle Garrison mid-flight. However, the maneuver ended in disaster, with the officer suffering 4 broken ribs and a severe concussion. Meanwhile, Garrison disappeared into the streets, leaving behind chaos and a sense of urgency among law enforcement. Local authorities quickly launched a manhunt, urging the public to report any sightings of the fugitive. For 4 tense days, Garrison evaded capture, sending shockwaves through the Greenfield community. Eventually, the chase ended at a secluded motel, where officers apprehended Garrison. His fleeting freedom came at a steep price. He was handed a 6-year prison sentence, far harsher than his original charge for drug possession. The injured deputy's actions, though unsuccessful, highlighted the extraordinary risks that law enforcement personnel take daily to uphold justice. His injuries, broken ribs, and a severe concussion required a lengthy and painful recovery, symbolizing the physical toll of split-second decisions in high-stakes scenarios. This dramatic escape attempt and its aftermath also sparked discussions about the need for heightened courthouse security and the unpredictability of law enforcement situations. The incident stands as a stark reminder of how quickly routine operations can spiral into chaos. As the community grappled with the fallout, the event became a vivid example of resilience, risk, and the pursuit of justice in the face of unexpected challenges. Rayan Woodford. Chaos erupted in Jefferson County Circuit Court when Rayan Woodford, a 29-year-old facing probation violation charges, tried something daring, an audacious courtroom escape attempt that left everyone stunned. Woodford was previously on probation for drug and weapon-related offenses. During his hearing, he sat solemnly as his girlfriend watched from just a few feet away, showing quiet support. A detective took the stand, recounting Woodford's prior charges involving a handgun and narcotics. The courtroom remained tense but orderly until the judge delivered the final blow. Probation revoked in its entirety, Mr. Woodford. You'll serve 5 years. Good luck to you. Just as the judge finished speaking, the courtroom exploded into action. A sudden blur flashed across the camera. Woodford bolted for the exit. His girlfriend's desperate cries pierced the room. "No, don't do this." Deputies reacted instantly, but Woodford was fast. Too fast for the stationary courtroom camera to capture the full chaos. Within moments, deputies tackled him, dragging him back into the courtroom in handcuffs. His escape attempt was over. Amid the scuffle, Woodford's girlfriend claimed she was shoved and had her hair pulled by a deputy. Tearful and visibly shaken, she addressed the court. "I didn't do anything wrong. He didn't have to put his hands on me." Judge Barry Willett listened, but grew visibly frustrated when she accused him of condoning the deputy's actions. "Don't you tell me I'm condoning anything," he shot back. "Your boyfriend fought with deputies. People might get pushed out of the way." While Woodford's girlfriend faced no additional charges, she left the courtroom in tears. Woodford, however, was hit with an extra charge, second-degree escape, on top of his 5-year sentence. In this courtroom drama, speed couldn't outmatch swift justice. Joel Delgado. In a jaw-dropping escape attempt straight out of a thriller, Joel Delgado, a 41-year-old convict from Little Rock, Arkansas, pulled off a daring stunt that left law enforcement stunned. Facing serious charges of burglary and firearms possession, Delgado was being transported to court in a wheelchair, claiming he couldn't move his legs. His alleged ailment seemed convincing, but was it all just an elaborate ruse? The plot thickened when Delgado, being wheeled into the courthouse, casually mentioned to the escorting officer that he'd lost his shoe. "Hey, you see a shoe back there?" he asked innocently, prompting the officer to bend down and check. In a sudden burst of energy, Delgado leapt out of the wheelchair and bolted like a sprinter at the starting gun. The officer, caught completely off guard, chased after him but quickly lost sight of the runaway convict. Desperately outpaced and without a radio to call for backup, the officer could only shout for help, frustration etched in his voice. "Call the police. The wheelchair dude got up and ran," he exclaimed to bystanders, disbelief still lingering. Despite the initial shock, law enforcement officials couldn't help but see the absurd humor in the situation. But the chase was far from over. Delgado managed to stay off the radar for a few tense hours before being tracked down on the other side of town. When officers finally caught him, Delgado once again played his familiar card, claiming injury and insisting he couldn't walk. This time, though, no one was buying it. He was charged with felony escape and hauled back into custody. Leonid Graser. Imagine coming face to face with someone who believes they're acting under dark supernatural orders. This chilling reality struck Russian authorities during the murder trial of 18-year-old Leonid Graser, accused of killing his sister in Moscow. His shocking crime, twisted justifications, and bizarre courtroom escape attempt left the world stunned. The nightmare began when police discovered Graser's sister's lifeless body in their shared apartment, surrounded by eerie demonic symbols painted in blood. When questioned, Graser displayed a chilling calmness, showing no remorse. He claimed that killing his sister was necessary to rid himself of self-doubt. Authorities also found drugs at the crime scene, but Graser insisted he acted with full awareness. His demeanor in court was equally unnerving, cold, calculating, and utterly detached from reality. To prevent an escape, officials confined him inside a glass cage during the trial. But what happened next shocked even seasoned officers. In a daring escape attempt, Graser managed to squeeze through the narrow top of the glass cage, forcing his way into the courtroom's false ceiling. Officers scrambled in a frenzied pursuit as the determined teen clawed his way toward freedom. Desperate to stop him, one officer grabbed Graser's pants, causing them to fall, an almost surreal moment in a high-stakes chase. Despite their efforts, Graser fought fiercely, refusing to surrender. More officers rushed in, threatening to use a taser. Cornered and exhausted, Graser finally gave up, crawling back into his glass enclosure, pants still down. After regaining control, authorities handcuffed him to ensure no more wild escapes. The judge ultimately sentenced Graser to mandatory psychiatric treatment every 6 months. His bizarre escape attempt may even prompt redesigns for courtroom cages, ensuring no one else can pull off such a spine-chilling stunt. Gregory Wright. What happens when a criminal channels Olympic-level athleticism to escape justice? Meet Gregory Wright, a 22-year-old Detroit man facing trial for armed robbery in 1995. Wright's crime spree began when he reportedly held a man at gunpoint, stealing both his vehicle and sense of security. During a high-speed chase, Wright crashed into a police cruiser and opened fire, hitting an officer in the arm before fleeing into the night. The very next day, Wright was captured and slapped with multiple charges, including armed robbery and firearms offenses. He showed no regret, infamously stating, "I have no remorse for shooting that police officer. He got what he deserved. If I had the chance, I would have killed him." His chilling declaration left no doubt about his dangerous mindset. During his pre-trial hearing, the judge set Wright's bond at a steep $50,000, a clear signal that he was headed straight for prison. But Wright had other plans. As court officers escorted him through the courthouse, he seized a split-second opportunity and bolted, launching into an escape attempt straight out of an action movie. With adrenaline surging, Wright dashed toward a courthouse barricade. In a jaw-dropping feat, he leapt over it with the grace of a professional athlete, determined to leave the law behind. For a moment, it seemed like he might pull off the impossible, but fate and law enforcement had different plans. Wright landed directly into the waiting arms of pursuing officers. His desperate bid for freedom triggered a chaotic scuffle involving 7 officers who eventually overpowered him. His bond was revoked instantly, ensuring there would be no second act to his courthouse performance. Zeus Martinez. Zeus Martinez, widely known by the moniker Enigma, cemented his place in true crime history with a series of audacious escapes, the most infamous of which occurred in 1977 in a California courtroom. Martinez, a murder suspect at the time, shocked the nation by overpowering his guards, seizing a firearm, and making a daring break for freedom. This incident became one of the most remarkable jailbreaks in US history, drawing significant media attention. Although recaptured and sentenced to life imprisonment, the dramatic episode left an indelible mark in the annals of criminal history. His criminal exploits extend far beyond a single escape. He faced numerous charges, including terroristic threats and stabbing a man, highlighting a long history of violent offenses. A particularly gripping example unfolded during a bond hearing where his bail was set at $1 lakh. As he was escorted to a transport bus alongside other defendants, Martinez noticed an opportunity. Though handcuffed, his feet were unrestrained, allowing him to make a sudden sprint. He darted past the guards and headed toward the courthouse parking lot, sparking a chaotic chase. The dramatic scene, captured on video, underscores the tension and unpredictability of his escape attempts. Watch the footage here. In the parking lot, Martinez demonstrated remarkable agility, evading deputies and even leaping over a fence in a desperate bid for freedom. For a moment, it seemed he might succeed. However, later that day, his luck ran out. A vigilant citizen alerted law enforcement after spotting Martinez hiding beneath her house. The authorities acted swiftly, recapturing him and returning him to custody. Following this escape attempt, Martinez's legal troubles deepened. His bond was increased to $5 lakh, and he faced an additional charge of third-degree escape, further lengthening his already substantial list of criminal offenses. The severity of these consequences reflected the gravity of his repeated defiance. His escapes remain captivating tales of desperation and defiance. His ability to exploit moments of vulnerability in law enforcement highlights the challenges of ensuring courtroom security. Eddie Villalobos. What happens when a murder suspect is unshackled in court? The answer stunned everyone present at the Hillsboro, Oregon courtroom in 2021, where Eddie Villalobos was on trial for second-degree murder, accused of a brutal stabbing. What should have been a routine court session turned into a pulse-pounding real-life thriller. As 2 deputies escorted Villalobos into the courtroom, protocol required removing his hand and leg restraints to prevent jury prejudice. But within seconds of being unshackled, Villalobos exploded into action. In a daring leap, he cleared a chair and bolted for the exit, leaving stunned onlookers frozen in shock. Deputies sprang into pursuit as Villalobos blitzed down hallways and staircases, making a beeline for the courthouse lobby. In a chilling moment, he slammed the exit door behind him. He was free. A man facing life in prison had just outsmarted his guards. With a dangerous suspect on the loose, the Washington County Sheriff's Office launched an intense 2-hour manhunt. Every passing second amplified the urgency. Then came a crucial tip. Someone was trying to break into an apartment nearby. Officers raced to the scene, hearts pounding. Inside the apartment, they found Villalobos hiding under a blanket in a closet, breathless and defeated. His high-stakes escape ended in quiet surrender. After his recapture, Villalobos faced new charges, including first-degree burglary and second-degree escape. Months later, justice caught up. He was convicted of execution and sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The courtroom escape remains a stark reminder of how even a brief lapse in security can spiral into a heart-stopping ordeal. Larry Darnell Gordon. Larry Darnell Gordon, 44, of Coloma, Michigan, was being brought from his holding cell to a hearing at the Maryanne County Courthouse in St. Joseph on Monday in July 2016, when he seized a gun from a sheriff's deputy, shot the 2 bailiffs, and briefly attempted to take hostages, authorities said. Other bailiffs and law enforcement personnel arrived on the scene, where Gordon was fatally shot, according to the Maryanne County Sheriff's Office. The guy who killed 2 bailiffs before being fatally shot by other cops in a Michigan courtroom was facing life in prison on accusations of kidnapping, drugging, and violating a 17-year-old girl. Moments after Gordon had been removed from courtroom 315, a security camera recorded sounds of a struggle from an adjacent holding area. According to police, Gordon assaulted, disarmed, and injured Deputy James Atterbury. Bailiffs Ronald Kinzel and Joseph Zangaro raced to the scene and were shot. "He's got a gun," and "Help me" were heard from the holding room. Someone was heard calling at Gordon to put down his rifle. There were around a dozen individuals inside the courtroom. Some ran through a door, while others hid behind benches until court workers told them to go. In addition to the 2 seasoned bailiffs who lost their lives, one of whom was the courthouse's chief of security. Sheriff Paul Bailey first stated Monday that Gordon was not shackled. However, at a news conference later, he stated that Gordon was handcuffed in front of his body, not behind his back, and that he was able to take Atterbury's revolver. According to accounts, Gordon stated in a letter to his ex-wife that he was fleeing or would die attempting because he did not want to spend the rest of his life in prison. The letter was discovered after investigators searched a Maryanne County jail unit where he had been kept prior to his July 11th appearance at the county courtroom. The letter read, "I'm not trying to die, and I don't want to. I'm just trying to get free, and I'll die trying. Getting free is the only chance at being able to see you. Hopefully I make it. Tracy Mobley and Maryanne Morrissey." It was a scene straight out of a thriller. At the courthouse in Columbus, Ohio, 2 women were about to face their fate. 39-year-old Moy, indicted for aggravated theft, and 40-year-old Morrissey, charged with drunk driving, but neither of them planned on heading to prison. In a move no one saw coming, the 2 women, shackled together at the wrist, stealthily positioned themselves at the back of the line, waiting for their chance. Then, in a flash, they made their move. In an audacious attempt to flee, they slid under the prison bus, hiding just beneath it. The officers, completely oblivious, continued loading more inmates, none the wiser to the missing prisoners. With the bus doors closed, the engine roared to life, and the convoy rolled out onto the streets. But the 2 fugitives weren't out of danger yet. When the bus came to a stop at a red light, the unthinkable happened. Morrissey somehow managed to free herself from her shackles. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, she bolted from the scene. It was the perfect getaway. Or so she thought. Fate had other plans. A sharp-eyed private detective, passing by at just the right moment, spotted Morrissey running. Without missing a beat, he pursued her. Within moments, she was caught, cuffed again, and handed back to the police. Meanwhile, Moy, still hiding, was found crouched in the bushes along the freeway. But the escape had taken its toll. A broken back from the chaotic scramble sent her straight to the hospital. When the dust finally settled, the 2 women, who had dared to escape in broad daylight, were hit with additional charges. Their wild bid for freedom had failed spectacularly, but their story would go down in Columbus crime lore. Joey Watts. Joey Watts thought he could outsmart the system. but his plan for freedom came crashing down in the most shocking way imaginable. On trial for threatening to kill a woman, facing charges of aggravated assault and felony firearm possession, Watts sat quietly beside his attorney at the Grant County Courthouse in Arkansas, waiting for the jury to deliberate. The courtroom was unusually relaxed. The prosecutor chatted with a few women, the court clerk was absorbed in her phone, and there was no sign of any court officers. That's when Watts saw his chance. In a move that stunned everyone, he got up from his seat and casually strolled out of the courtroom. No one stopped him. Once outside, he walked down the stairs, exchanged a few words with his family, and picked up the pace. Without hesitation, he made his escape through the courthouse's main door. The entire jury was still inside, unaware of the audacious break for freedom happening right under their noses. But Watts wasn't home free just yet. As he sprinted down the street, desperate to avoid capture, back inside the courthouse, the jury found him guilty on all counts. His time on the run was short-lived. The very next day, authorities tracked him down. Turns out, he'd been out on bond, which meant he was free to roam the courthouse unrestrained. No guards were present, thanks to a staffing shortage. It didn't end there. Watts had help. His brother, seated behind him, had signaled 2 accomplices to follow suit. As soon as Watts bolted, they moved quickly, leaving the courthouse together. The police eventually caught up with him. Watts was sentenced to 36 years, 10 for the murder attempt and 26 for his firearm possession. His desperate, daring escape was caught on camera, making headlines as a bold attempt to avoid jail, but it ultimately failed. A reckless dash for freedom and a reminder that justice always catches up. Callum Finner. In a surprising turn of events at the Bradford Crown Court in the UK, what began as a routine day quickly escalated into a dramatic jailbreak attempt. A 17-year-old recently sentenced to 21 weeks in jail for stealing a mobile phone found himself at the center of a bold escape plan. The incident involved 21-year-old Callum Finner, who initiated the escape by pressing a button on the wall, unlocking a door, and enabling his quick-footed accomplice to make a daring run for freedom. The teenager, undeterred by the security measures, dashed through the hallway and into the security checkpoint, with 4 officers giving chase. Security camera footage reveals the teen's remarkable speed, far outpacing the Bradford Crown Court security team. As the teen sprinted away, 3 guards appeared to abandon the pursuit, seemingly deciding the chase wasn't worth their effort. However, one determined officer refused to give up, continuing his pursuit at a slower pace. Meanwhile, Finner trailed behind, presumably to reunite with his friend and revel in the apparent success of their audacious plan. Despite the initial escape, the victory was short-lived. The 17-year-old fugitive was apprehended 2 days later and received an additional 6 months on his sentence for the escape attempt. The incident highlights the limitations of security protocols when faced with unexpected situations. Finner, who played a key role in facilitating the escape, faced his own consequences. By the time he stood before a judge, he chose not to test his luck further. He pleaded guilty to aiding and abetting his friend's escape, earning a 3-month jail sentence for his actions. Christopher Clay Rudd. Next we have Christopher Clay Rudd standing in the 4th Judicial District Court in Spanish Fork, Utah, under the harsh glow of courtroom lights. The clock ticks to 18 minutes past 11 and the judge calls the session to order. This is where the fate of every defendant is sealed, the arraignment. It's the moment when the charges are laid bare and the defendant must decide, guilty or not guilty. For Rudd, it's a pivotal moment. He's facing charges after failing to follow through on a court-ordered drug treatment program. His future, hanging in the balance. Handcuffed, but without the shackles that often accompany serious charges, Rudd stands with a stone-cold expression. The courtroom holds its breath. Will he accept his fate or fight it out? Every move, every second in this room is critical. As the clock continues its relentless march forward, Rudd waits. The tension mounts as a lawyer makes their way to the bay, exchanging hurried words with the defendant. The courtroom watches in silence. Moments later, the lawyer exits, flanked by 2 officers. But that's not all. In the background, another person slips out the door. CCTV footage from the building shows the 35-year-old, who is handcuffed at the wrists, get up and walk out of the courthouse. A second camera in a corridor then recorded Rudd tossing himself over a guardrail onto a stairway, whirling in the air as he falls around 20 feet to a tiled floor in the lobby. Police officers were unable to catch the man with a death wish as he fell to the ground, but they did manage to keep him from doing more damage. Rudd allegedly suffered head and hip injuries during the fall and was rushed to the hospital for treatment. Spanish Fork officer Lieutenant Matt Johnson spoke with the Salt Lake Tribune and revealed it almost looks like he purposely dove right over the railing. He also clarified that Rudd's jump was the first incident of its kind at the courthouse. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.